It's the Friday Feels, and we're back with your first sip of the weekend. You're now tuned in to this week's episode of Your Happy Hour. I'm your host, Nicole Carmine, and it's amazing to have you here, joining me this week as we uncover the truths about being a human and a working professional. What are you up to this Friday? Well, whatever it is, this moment is just for you. And we're back with another episode on the Feels podcast. We are in the Your Happy Hour series, and we are chatting about May I Motivate. It's still the month of May, and it's a new feeling of seasons around as we look around ourselves, no matter what hemisphere you're in. And today I'm really grateful to be able to chat to a guest who I can't even remember how we kind of came upon each other's paths, but here we are now, and you've just walked such an interesting journey, kind of finding your way in your life, and I'm really keen to talk about that a little bit more, and also what this theme means to you. So a huge welcome, Kobus, to the Field Space, to the Your Happy Hour series, the podcast, and yeah, just excited to unpack a bit more.
Thanks so much, Nicole. It's great to be with you.
So tell me a little bit about what you do and how you ended up doing what you're doing today. And I know you also have a school of wayfinding, but tell us about the journey towards this.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the opportunity to reflect on that journey. I think often when you embark on such a thing, you don't know where it's going to end. So it surprises you just as much, as others. But I feel a good place to start is since I was very young, I've always also played music. But I remember when I wanted to decide what I was going to do with my life, my primary school teacher, I wrote in the yearbook, and I was like, oh, what do you want to become one day? And it was, I want to become a pilot, and I want to become an engineer, because when I'm flying the plane, if something goes wrong, I can fix it as well, right? So there was I've always had this fascination with how things work, but I think also music has been such a gift of learning how to connect with people also non-verbally, and, connect with energy. Or there's a flow state that you can enjoy with others, which is like a whole nother intelligence that you get to navigate life with. So I feel like that was like another big piece. But I did, in fact, honor that wish that I made when I was a small boy. And I did go and study aerospace engineering. It was my first challenge. So one thing I noticed is in that first part of my life, I loved a good challenge, right? I loved challenging myself to, do things that would really intellectually stimulate me. But I was, I think, for a large part, operating very much from that space, right? From trying to figure things out through my mental faculties. And that was very much what the engineering chapter was about. But I always had this sort of, undercurrent of, I think, especially through music and through just my fascination for people. I started realizing I'm not just interested in how systems work, but I'm also interested in how do people come to see the world, and became an amateur, let's say, psychologist of just reading any books I could get my hands on, And I think that gave me just an appreciation to see what was going on in the spaces in between people and the way that they were perceiving things. But there was always like a current on the side that it's a really powerful question to ask yourself. Is like, what do you do when no one tells you what to do? What do you find yourself just doing all the time? And that then starts to illuminate a bit more of what your essence is and who you are as a person. And what your curiosity just naturally tends you towards. So my curiosity was definitely peaked around that. And I think like we all, growing up in families, we all take on different roles. I was a little bit more of the peacemaker in the family. So I think in that sense, I was also trying to understand the dynamics that was playing out in my own family and trying to, steer it in a better direction. So there was this engineer side and there was the psychologist, but there's also this music that was always playing out. And when I was actually about to choose my master's in aerospace, I was sitting there listening to all the lecturers. And they were going through each strand, control systems and flight operations and all this very technical stuff. And I just remember having this sort of awakening moment where I could no longer get myself to go on a challenge because I wasn't feeling it anymore. It was almost like I was achieving for the sake of achieving. And so it wasn't coming from a deeper space. It was coming from, oh, this is what my parents want, or this is what I think should be done. And so that leads you to burnout eventually. And that leads you to a sense of just depletion because it's not coming from a sort of a grounded space, right, within you. And there I realized, oh, wait, I don't feel anything when I hear these people speak. Like, where is my enthusiasm? And that was almost a bit of an alarming realization because I was like, surely life must be a bit more, I must be enthusiastic about what I'm doing and with my life and my work. So then I kind of came to that sort of inconvenient truth that I need to shift my paths. And I ended up staying kind of more in the engineering space. I then went to technical management faculty, which was a little bit more interdisciplinary, still kind of engineering, technical side, but had a lot more, interdisciplinary studies and cross-cultural stuff. I also went to international schools. I grew up with a lot of international, different cultures around me, and that felt quite homey to me. So it felt like, if it feels like the United Nations, great, that feels like home. When there's difference and so much. But I think that also is my curiosity for people and how they see the world. It's like the perfect environment to satisfy that curiosity and also learn a lot about different ways of seeing the world. But I took that degree not really knowing what I was going to do with it, but I knew I needed to do something a little bit more with people and leading groups. And actually, a critical piece there was I went to South Korea for 6 months. So every time my studies, they were like, okay, Kobus, it's time to specialize. And I'm like, no, I'm going to go and design my own program. So every opportunity I got where I would design my own program and I would not follow what the script was, right? And so I decided to go for 6 months to South Korea and go immerse myself in a culture that's completely different than my own. And what that revealed to me was actually revealed my own cultural lens by contrast of how we see things as Westerners, the individualism that we have. And but I think that trip showed me what was possible when I can just design, when my life is my own canvas. And the experiences that I had there, I think shifted something deeply within me because now I was no longer on the treadmill. We'll often call it that, the treadmill of society. Everyone is racing somewhere and you're like, where are we racing? What hoops are we jumping today? And it's quite a strong pull. But when something goes wrong, right, or you go off a path that's not, then you get off that. And now suddenly you realize, well, what do I want to do? Not what am I expected to do or what are my peers doing, or I need to keep in line with the cohort that I'm now part of. And so it can be a very unsettling time as well because you kind of feel quite lost because you're like, oh, am I now successful? Like I'm no longer doing what everybody's, expecting of me. But to be honest, that's when life actually starts. If you look back, it's actually when the journey really starts. And so when I came back, I had a few months where the faculty next to technical management, actually where I studied, was the industrial design faculty. And they had this creative facilitation elective. So I just had some time, just to burn, and I ended up enrolling for this. And then realized that I have these creative facilitation skills, which I've probably picked up through my music, whatever that was, but it felt so alive and was almost like a creative consultancy lens. I was taking the consultancy skills from my technical management, my systems thinking from my engineering, but then also this people psychology thing. Design kind of became like a really beautiful integration of all these different disciplines. And then I actually made that the basis of my master thesis then for my master's degree. And I basically designed, are you familiar with, any entrepreneur is familiar with the business model canvas. So I designed a framework essentially for designing mission-led organizations using this business model canvas. But then it's not, revenue is not the bottom line, but it's about impact. So how do we do good better was essentially a visual tool that I created for. And so I've kind of found a thread there. I was like, okay, cool. There's now some things synthesizing. But again, just really following my curiosity, that felt most alive. And it felt like at that time of my life, it was bringing together threads that felt meaningful to me. Yeah, and then I basically just, again, designed my own thing. But I didn't really know where it was leading. But I finished off that degree and had some things happen in my personal life as well, which kind of again threw me for another curveball, which made that I spent about 6 months in Geneva. You know, when you finish off your degree, you kind of, okay, I need to get into the corporate world. I need to go, you know, make something of myself. But then when I was in Geneva, I discovered a co-working space called Impact Hub, which was all about sort of incubating social entrepreneurship, you know, social enterprises that had a triple bottom line. And suddenly it dawned on me that work doesn't have to be you sitting in a corporate space, but it can be a community, and it can be like people that have different skills and, you know, all these different multidisciplinary approach. And there I also picked up on these facilitation skills. I took a facilitation course there around just navigating, helping groups find consensus, helping unpack things as a group, make meaning together. And that was the skills that you need in those environments when there's so many different players and different stakeholders involved. And so that dawned on me, okay, that's more the kind of life I want to live. It wasn't the corporate, it was more in community, you know, sitting alongside someone that is doing their own thing, more a freelancer, finding their own path, being more independent. But then I kind of, a relationship came to an end then, and I had to leave Geneva. And then I came back to South Africa for just to kind of take some time to recover and rest. And in that year, I sort of just told myself I was just going to see what would happen. I left South Africa when I was 7 years old. So I grew up in the Netherlands. But I'd never really discovered what South Africa meant to me as an adult. And I wanted to find my own story in South Africa. And what ended up happening was I started working, when I arrived, I started working for a church, and I joined a community then. I was in the music ministry. I was helping with youth-related stuff, as well as booking all the musicians and bands, working with some really prolific musicians, very devotional, but also allowed me to sort of go more inwards within myself. And I think drop down from the head into the heart and to the body. And I feel that was the year that I found what was actually, you know, below the head. Where was my heart pulling me, and what was my body? What did I feel attracted to? What was I drawn to? And I became more aware of that. And ended up, but I knew it was just like a transition here. And I realized out of there that I did a lot of Enneagram coaching and strength finders. I think as you do when you're kind of lost and you're trying to find your way, it's really helpful just to find some language for where what do you look like at your best? What's some language that you can use to describe yourself when you're at your most alive? And that's, I think, what that year really gave me. And what it revealed to me is that I loved learning, kind of obvious from the before. I loved walking a path with people. I loved coming alongside, and there was this beautiful icon about like Jesus and the friend, right? Of having his arm around someone and sort of navigating life and uncertainty together. And I found that that was the thing I was doing with friends, with family, with people around me when no one told me what to do. I was literally just always walking alongside them and trying to make sense of, you know, what was ahead of them, what uncertainty that was ahead of them. But with that, you know, you have to also keep learning because you don't know what happens then. But then crazy thing is, a year later, a school pops up right next to this church. Like it's built in like 2-3 months. I show up for the open day. The principal of the school sees me and says, "You're a teacher, when are you starting?" And I'm like, what? Sorry, what? That's not really part of my plan. I'm here with an aerospace engineering degree. And I'm above things of like teaching recorder to grade 5 kids. But there was something, like I was saying, the head was no longer making the decision. It was now the heart. And there was such a strong pull that I was like, I need to listen to this. But obviously when you sometimes feel that call, there's always the refusal. So you spend 3 months like denying that that's actually a pull, but you're increasingly more uncomfortable because you're like, the whole system is being pulled that way. And so I eventually came, and my first lesson was, I was a part-time music teacher teaching recorder to grade 5 kids. First lesson completely bombed. I should have run for the hills, but instead I decided, no, this sounds like a great deal. Like I should just keep going. And before I knew it, I just changed it around. Before I knew it, like I was the music teacher for the whole school because the other teacher quit. And then I was here teaching recorder, like teaching music to kindergartens and teenagers, 130 minutes on the floor, teaching pitch and highs and lows. And then the teenage angst walks in the room and we need to be cool again, right? So but then like what started happening was, all these skills that I've been following my curiosity along, suddenly that became the exact right skill that I needed to unlock this group. So creative facilitation, I had the freedom to sort of design it. I realized my music class was actually about helping kids find their voice. And all the kids that were naughty then flourished in this class because I flipped it. It was, I workshopped it with them. There was no exams, there was just performances. And so I think that's where then my journey into education, really, I was ushered into it. But it got me then interested in, okay, well, what's the education system? So then my engineer brain came back online and said, okay, well, what's all these forces that are stopping me from actually just doing this? Why are not other subjects feel like this, right? So that kind of started me into curriculum design, learning design, soon joined other schools, program design, starting a co-learning space here in Cape Town. So it's all very quick. And really sort of being at the frontier of what's happening in learning in the space. And currently what I do now, I start communities of practices within organizations and I facilitate them, seed them, launch them. But it's about a curiosity-driven, emergent learning approach. So we don't have a set curriculum. We sense it together as a group. And so you see all these little things that I did up front suddenly became the very thing that would give me the unique advantage in the work that I do now. But it unfolded, it revealed itself by me listening for 10 years and also sometimes sitting with a lot of uncertainty and financial insecurity. But it now lets me, and it dawned me kind of full circle about last year, November, I went back to South Korea and then I spoke at a conference. And I was surrounded by some of the leading progressive leaders within the progressive education space, like Think Global School, Green School, all these guys. And here I was speaking alongside of them. And here I was like, how the hell did this happen? It's like here I was teaching recorder, and then 10 years later, I'm sitting here speaking with like the top leaders of this progressive education movement. And so that revealed to me what happens when you start navigating life from this deeper, more ancient intelligence, which is the heart of the body, and that enthusiasm and curiosity actually already knows the way. They already know the way, but the mind has to catch up later. So it subverted my way of navigating. And the lessons I learned along that path is essentially what birthed the School of Wayfinding, because then I realized this is what I want to culminate and start helping other people navigate life this way. And I think it's really important today because we're having so much disruption with AI and people losing their jobs and the career ladder, the career ladder path is falling away. So people are being plunged into this liminality or this sort of uncertainty, often without their will. And so I feel this wayfinding or navigating kind of from this space, life from this space, is kind of become the new way of navigating your career and life. And so now it felt like all of it was on the way and not in the way, all of it was, okay, now I can see. I mean, that's kind of 10, 15 minutes of really that full journey. Wow. So thank you for the question to reflect on it. It was, it's kind of what's still unfolding now, but it's a disposition and a way of living.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I'm super happy that I didn't try give your bio, because I wouldn't have done it justice in trying to explain who you are and what you do. I'm so intrigued by how you followed your heart eventually, but it's always that pull that's there. And so what do you feel motivates you now? What does motivation mean to you now?
At the moment, I'm working with a network called Mind Studio, and what's really energized me lately is really thinking about how we run organizations so that we can create a container that actually does unlock people's talents and that they can actually have a sense of freedom, autonomy to direct their own paths. What would that look like as a collective? How could we, kind of sense together where an organization wants to go, that it has its own life force. So I have my own, but we also have something as a collective. And how would you operationalize and govern that? And so this is kind of what I'm working on at the moment, which has been really, really interesting to get to do it differently, right? See it work more as a network, than an organization that has like a profit-seeking incentive. But how do we, restore a sense of trust and collaboration again amongst humans? How do we share the gains that we create together? And for me, the thing that's really motivated me lately is how do we translate that vision that often feels quite far and out of reach? What are the operational practices that we need to implement within organizations to make that actually a living reality? How must we facilitate meetings? How do we show up? All these questions that I think can help unlock the collective intelligence of a group. And so what I've found myself lately is, designing journeys or mirror boards that help unlock that intelligence in groups, so that there's not a leader, who's saying, okay, this is what we must do. We must backwards plan from my vision, but more we collectively sense and respond to what we're feeling where it wants to go. And so that means it's a posture of listening deeply and having presence, and also sitting in a lot of uncomfortable silences and but from that arises where it wants to go. So we're making spaciousness for sort of a great intelligence to come through. And so if organizations can run that way, I think, wow, how much that will just, it's be a beautiful place to be a part of. Yeah, and I think that's one thing that's really jazzing me up these days. Other things is, I think the music has also come back to me. I've become a percussionist, drummer, flowing in the moment with DJs and creating my own music. It's an incredible, again, not knowing where it's going, but taking what I'm hearing and then elevating it with my craft or with my skill, what I'm hearing. And what I've noticed is just the way that drums and percussion can just bring people together again, so that they're not facing the DJ, but they're facing each other. And, there's this sort of joy circle that you can unlock with people. That's also jazzing me up these days. Yeah, and then I think the other thing is really just working again more with young people that are starting that journey, because they feel that they have to figure it all out when they're teenagers. And so helping just alleviate some of that anxiety, especially for more the progressive schools, that are actually putting kids on more unconventional paths, that they maybe need to be more entrepreneurial, they need to find their own way. And so, the way you coach and guide such a young person is completely different. But it's what we need more of, because then, our actual talents can come into the world. So I'd say those are the sort of three things that are really guiding my path at the moment. And it keeps changing, I think as life goes on, but that's what feels most alive at the moment.
I love it. And I feel like they're very intertwined. And that when you just said keeps changing, I'm glad you did. That was a good segue into what I was thinking about, is that it feels to me that everything you've shared and so much of what's happening in the world today is that we're having to change from motivation being achievement driven and looking at where you want to go and then what motivates you to get there, versus being in the flow of the moment being the motivation to get somewhere. And it's okay if you don't know what that is. It's okay to figure it out along the way, like you said, So maybe society has kind of taught us over the years to find motivation through goals and checklists and things like that, or what might look smart on paper. But the most joy comes from feeling alive in the moment, and whatever that is for you, you know. So I love that you've done that. You know, you've obviously, I know in my own journey, I've also walked the road to kind of still finding that, like you said, it changes every day. And some days you're like, blah, why am I doing this, you know? And then other days you're like, oh, this is great, I feel alive. And it's okay to have that, where motivation doesn't always have to be necessarily a high all the time, you know. It can sometimes be a low rumble. And we don't always give space for that. So it's really amazing. And so I wanna do a quick little segment while we think about kind of what has been motivating to us, or something that's been good. We do a little moment called the gems. And so it's something you've learned in the last week, or maybe felt motivated by, or have gratitude for. For me, it's been... I guess closing a bit of a chapter, and definitely allowing myself to hear the motivations and kind of feel where my heart is being pulled back to. I feel like the last year I've kind of been on a very interesting trajectory that's helped, you know, like you say, these things happen in bubbles, and then you realize why you had to learn certain things. But then just very much coming back to my groundedness and like a new refreshed rhythm, heartbeat, I guess. And so that's really been beautiful. I just feel like I've kind of feel myself again after a really long time. So what's yours been for you?
Oh, thanks so much for sharing. Yeah, feeling when you feel like you've come home to yourself, it's the best feeling. Yeah, I think for me, what I've been really grateful for is, I think number one, having colleagues around me that it's not just about the work, it's also about what's happening in our lives. So having a sense of wholeness that I can bring, you know, so I don't have to have all these separate selves. I can bring my full self. And especially, I had this beautiful experience last 2 weeks, and coming back to my work and being able to share that was really special. Not like, you know, trying to be all professional. I mean, that's important. There's place and time for that. But at the end of the day, you know, work sits within life, not the other way around. And I think the other thing is, I've also just recently come back in contact with a lot of Dutch friends, or people that I've met recently, new Dutch friends. And so, as I told you, my journey, I was 20 years in the Netherlands, a big part of me. But when I came back to South Africa, I'd spend most of my time kind of, okay, well, what does it mean to be South African? Was more that identity. I almost lost what it meant to be not just a South African in Holland, but to be a Dutch person in South Africa. And so when I spoke with a lot of Dutch people now that I met in those last 2 weeks, I've been so grateful for the way that they've kind of helped me reframe a lot of that experience. Because I think Dutch culture can sometimes be quite direct and it's a bit hard sometimes, especially as a South Afrikaans person, that's a bit more indirect. But I feel I met, you know, when people show up out of the blue, that just give you a completely different view of that. And then almost as if you're time traveling back and you're changing what that story was. And now you can, you know, see people for where they are actually. Like, so, you know, sharing songs with each other, knowing like these songs that I grew up with, that we sang around a fireplace in the last few weeks. And yeah, just it brought up so many nostalgic memories for me. And I'm like, oh, wait. Here's a part of me that I haven't actually have ignored for a long time. And so bringing that back again. And then people just showing that to you, which I think brings it back to the sense of wholeness, right? Feeling really everything that you are, and not feeling that you need to push certain parts of yourself down or suppress them, but like bringing all of it. That's been such a gift. And where I've also just felt so much, you know, comfortable in my own skin. And yeah, I don't know. It's inviting me to now sit with it and see what I want to reclaim also from that part of my life and bring into my life in the present. So, yeah, grateful for these messengers that come out of the blue.
I love that. Life is full of beautiful, unexpected messages and messages and messengers. Yeah, it's really, that's amazing that you get to experience that. And feeling whole and integrated is so important. We're never meant to leave parts of ourselves behind, really. Right. But we do, and then we go fetch them again. So
right, activate them all at the same time.
Exactly. On the topic of messengers, I guess also I want to say a quick little spotlight on our partners who are sort of on our journey, who came on my journey in very unexpected ways too. And a big thank you to rss.com. Help us distribute this into the world, and have just been so kind along the journey. And B&E Sim is also a travel sim, which has been incredible for me as I've traveled along the world. And both them and our last partner, Blender Bombs, have given our audience a wonderful discount. So if you reach out to us on the socials and you're interested in nutritious snacks, or maybe starting your own podcast, or having a travel sim that's really affordable and globally available, please let us know and we will send you all the details, and we want to hear all the feels. So thank you so much to them. And I want to give another quick little feels shout out to a people, place and space. We always do this to someone or an organization that's just got wonderful feels and doing cool things and following their joy. And this week, I recently got in touch with a lady who has started her own formulation of products for dogs, and it's very essential oil, very natural. Having a dog myself, I really appreciate that, and just her passion and just being able to help animals. And so it's been so wonderful to see her also in her own journey and why she started it, helping her dog. And it's like you were saying, Kobus, like sometimes people or things come into our lives and then out comes a company or, whatever it might be, whatever motivates you. And so a big shout out to Pui, which is just the cutest name as well. Her dog was named Pui, and so the company's named Pui, and it just lit up my week. So a big shout out to you. We love your feels, and keep creating beautiful things for our fellow beings we share this world with. And then I have one more question for you, and that is, what is in your stack? So our reading list, maybe a book you've read and loved, or maybe something you still like to read and that you love to recommend.
Yeah, thanks so much. One, kind of to continue on of diving a bit deeper and getting some helpful metaphors for wayfinding through life, I would recommend two books to dive a bit deeper in. One is actually, his name is Boyd Varty. He's a wilderness guide. He's I think a guide in the Kruger Park. It's got a family at the Londozi National Park. But he uses the idea of tracking an animal as a metaphor for navigating life with purpose, and that you're following the tracks of the animal. Obviously the animal is changing, moving, but it's about attuning again to your senses. And he just has such a beautiful way of making like the way that you navigate uncertainty very tangible. And what also happens when you do such an experience, what then comes online for you, like learning to pay attention again to the clues around you. So if you're going through the wilderness and you're hearing a certain bird or a certain animal, a lion is nearby. So there's all this feedback that you're getting constantly, and it's such a beautiful metaphor. So it's called A Line Tracker's Guide to Life by Boyd Varty. It's a very short book, beautiful one to engage with. And then he was inspired by Martha Beck, who's a wayfinding coach within the US. She's written this book called Finding Your Own North Star. And that has some really practical exercises for finding your own way in life. And she also came out of a very sort of Mormon conservative religious environment, and it was this deep journey of finding her authentic true self and how to navigate in that space. So Line Tracker's Guide to Life and Finding Your Own North Star by Martha Beck is two books I would highly recommend.
Amazing. I just got such goosebumps when you're talking about Martha Beck, so I'm going to add that one definitely to my stack.
Yes. Hey, follow that. There we go. There's a track.
Yeah, there's a track. I'll follow. Don't know where it's going to lead, but I'm excited. Thank you so much for recommending those. And for those who are interested, all the books that get recommended on the podcast get added to the website to check out. And I wonder what everyone's feeling about motivation, about being in this month of May, kind of on the cusp of a whole new quarter, a whole new year of season. And just where you are following your joy and the nudges in your heart. Or if not, maybe it's time to. And a big thank you to you, Kobus, for sharing your heart so openly and honestly and your journey, and just being brave enough to follow your path. It's really inspirational to the rest of us too. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Nicole. And I just want to say thank you to you also for the platform and the way that you are a custodian of allowing people to reflect on those journeys through your podcast. And so thank you for the work that you do to also keep the fire burning for all of us. So appreciate that.
If you haven't just yet, follow Friday Feels on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and LinkedIn. You can share with us all your feels this week by tagging us at fridayfeels.co. And you can also find the website at that handle. And now, as you ease into this weekend, take a moment. Celebrate who you've become, what you've overcome, and what is yet to come as you do the crazy and cool things that you do as the authentic you. The truth about life and work is that it's hard, but the beauty is this global working experience that you're in, well, we earn it together. So keep connecting, empowering, and inspiring this week. And of course, keep it raw and real. Until next time.